And we're doing this show as a test of a new idea for a show, and where we go into a little more depth and more confidential material with our special audience. Those who want to join with us. Also, so that we can get closer and answer questions and get to know each other better, so that we can make sure we make all the right um, and energy and talents to save our country. Because I don't know if I can exaggerate enough how it's going to be in your hands whether this country remains and continues to be a fascist country with all our systems of fairness and justice and decency and our own moral decency eroded and destroyed. Whether we're going to take it back or it's going to continue to decline as it has rapidly. You can't deny the fact that this is a country now without God, without morals. It's a corrupt country. I don't know how you countries, but I can tell you it'd be impossible for me to get a fair trial in the District of Columbia. It just wouldn't happen. Uh, and of course, it is impossible for Donald Trump to get a fair trial, as it was for those J6 defendants who, whatever they did, were put away for extraordinarily lengthy periods of time, the kind of time that the Russians used to put people in the gulag. I don't know if the comparison is all that wrong. Also, their conditions of confinement were much worse than the confinement in an American jail or prison. Why they were being tortured is beyond me. I mean, if they committed a crime, they committed a crime, but we don't torture people for committing crimes in America. And what did that crime ultimately turn out to be? Not the hysterical vision given to you by the Democrats and the crooked press. Remember, the first day, 4 people died, were killed by the protesters. Protesters killed no one. The cops killed people. They killed Trump people. They didn't tell you that the first day. They still don't talk about Ashley Babbitt. It's as if her life is meaningless. It was an insurrection. Well, luckily, a Maryland or a Minnesota court threw that out and said they can't take him off the ballot in Minnesota because a couple of people decided he was involved in an insurrection, and the 14th allow you to run for office if you were involved in a civil war, which was an insurrection. Well, first of all, he wasn't involved in an insurrection. Number 2, there was no insurrection. Number 3, how can you even possibly go forward with this and maintain any sense of integrity about yourself when nobody's even been charged with an insurrection? I mean, I think they've done, I may be wrong, but I think they've done 1,000 charges or something. This thing has probably cost $100 million. While we've got people getting killed on the streets left and right, and Justice Department doesn't help with that. I mean, the resources used to torture the January 6th defendants are taken away from something. We don't have unlimited resources. There are something like, I'll give you an example. New York City is down to a very low number of police. Very, very terrible mistake, particularly in an era of increased concern about terrorism. But the very small number of police officers, 34,000. There are only 15,000 FBI agents for the whole world. You start taking up 1,000 of them for something, you just ignored a crime. Maybe organized crime, maybe fentanyl. Somebody's ignoring fentanyl because people are dying left and right from it at record rates. I mean, Biden has records that will assure the fact that he's the worst president ever in the history of this country. More people have died of fentanyl than ever before. The last year that Trump was in office, about 450,000 people crossed the border illegally, as far as we can tell. That doesn't count the gotaways. This year it was 2.5 million. Biden he was in office and then broke his own record. Now, that's not a record you want for astronomical amounts of illegal people coming in. and without any vetting. And of course, the more that come in with the limited resources you have, the less vetting you can do. In that way, with the limited resources that you have, the more they can come in without detection, because you have engaged your limited number of border patrol agents with the crowds that are coming in. The more they're engaged with that, those can take advantage of the open spaces and bring in the really dangerous people, which they get large sums of money. For example, if China just wants to get some people in here that are going to be the usual spies that they have in our university, whatever, they'll send them in with the big wave of people. And more Chinese have come in the last year than almost ever before. I wonder why that happened. When we got a guy that could almost be considered a paid employee of the Chinese Communist, Biden. I wonder if he gets a W-2 form from the Chinese, but he is paid as if he's working for them, and he acts like he's working for you. He has made more decisions squarely against your interests than any president in history, beginning with canceling the Keystone Pipeline and taking us from being energy independent to being dependent, which may be a root cause like Putin feeling empowered to go into Ukraine and kill all those people. Now, you don't have a doubt that would have happened under Trump, do you? And I can prove to you it wouldn't. It didn't. That's the proof. The last three of the four presidents, he invaded under Bush, he invaded under the communist Obama, and he invaded under Biden. There's one he didn't invade under. So you can be a fool and say he would have invaded under Trump, but you'd be a fool. And the cheating they did on that election, and the people like Barr who covered it up and covered up the hard drive, all played a role in the killing of thousands, if not 100,000, innocent people that would not have died. Ukraine would not have happened. Afghanistan wouldn't happen the way it did. And not only would Trump have not taken out the troops before the civilians, no sane person would have, sitting in the White House. There wasn't even a good reason to do it if you want to make the country communist, to get all those people killed. Now, giving up $85 billion worth of arms to the Taliban may very well have had a purpose. It seems to me that one was probably orchestrated by Obama, who was constantly giving incredible sums of money to terrorists. I mean, the guy should have gone to jail for the cash that was sent to Iran. From the moment he did it, I couldn't understand why people didn't understand it. Very few people would disagree with the fact that Iran is the biggest sponsor of terrorism in the world. If you're the biggest sponsor of terrorism and you give money to the biggest sponsor of terrorism, what are you giving money to? Huh? You got it right. That's called logic. Not allowed if you're a Democrat, because they lie. If you give huge amounts of money to them, you're really encouraging terrorism even more, right? Suppose in the process, this country that sponsors terrorism more than any country in the world asks you for cash. I don't know. I was in government for I never remember the government doing business. I never got paid in cash by the United States government. I think if I asked for cash, they'd have put me in jail. I remember investigating cash transactions as a prosecutor because they're all inherently suspicious in this day and age of wires and checks. But hundreds of millions in cash in the middle of the night in an airplane, and he doesn't. That's going to directly go to terrorists. Well, the one thing that Obama isn't is a jackass. He may be a communist, but he's not a jackass. You tell me he didn't know that money was going to terrorists? This is before. This is before we really cracked down on the Iranians killing us. That money went to kill Americans. Americans were killed with that money that he gave to them, and the American establishment doesn't even react to it. They treat him like he's a prince, and he's a typical high-level communist. He's a millionaire, billionaire, whatever the hell he is. He didn't start that way. Wonder how he made his money. A communist from Chicago who's a Democrat. How do you think he made his money?
Love to know the demographics and the.
So the progress, we've got to talk about another thing here that is, I don't know if this is confidential, but it is completely, unbelievably shocking that it is alleged that several of the communist press organizations were embedded with Hamas. That would be AP, The Times, CNN, and Reuters. They write incredibly false stories constantly. They write stories with a venom against the United States that is frightening. And I can't for the life of me figure out how any legitimate human being can embed with terrorists. Even if they say they didn't know, what do they think was going to happen? They think that Hamas is designated as a terrorist by every country in the world for no reason at all. They were going to go have a war based on the Marquess of Queensberry rules. I mean, I don't believe for a minute they didn't know what was going to happen, and because they're damn sick mercenaries. How many times do they take pictures and people are dying and don't do shit about it? They don't do anything about it. Time to drop the microphone, pick up a gun and shoot them when they're killing babies, huh? That's what a real human being, a real man, not a piece of crap, embedded with Hamas. I mean, I guess there'll come a time in which I've heard everything, but I guess I haven't yet. You figure out for me any legitimate reason why you'd embed with a terrorist organization, and then tell me you're surprised that they're raping women, killing babies. That entire attack was focused exclusively on civilians. All the plans, all the maps that were gotten, all the tapes that were gotten, they targeted kibbutz. Most of you know what a kibbutz is, I imagine. It goes back to the early days of I think even before it was officially Israel. You know, when the first settlers came there, they started to organize in kibbutz, and it's really a socialist idea. They all live off the land, and they, I think, share equally the product in feeding themselves and then in making a profit when they sell it. Now, it has, since Bibi, and people don't give him enough credit for this, since Bibi turned Israel from a socialist economy to a capitalist economy, Israel's become one of the 10 wealthiest countries in the world, little tiny Israel. You want an example of why socialism doesn't work when they were impoverished under socialism, and why capitalism works? Whatever else Bibi Netanyahu is going to be known for, good and bad, the guy materially changed the economy of a country that was economically getting by to a country that, for its size, is an economic power. It's one of the reasons I'm getting some maps of Israel and the Middle East and making them custom. And the thing that amazes me the most, and I'll have one shortly, I'll show it to you, is how small Israel is in the Middle East. I don't know, is it the size of Long Island? Probably bigger than Long Island. I think it's the size of New Jersey. Of course, they had they gave that up when I was relatively a kid, not very all that knowledgeable in world affairs, and I don't think I'd even been to Israel at that point, and I was dead set against it. It was the dumbest thing that anybody be required to do. You win territory in a war, and you give it back just to please these stupid Europeans who think I told President Trump once, if you ever want a victory, you know, you want to be known as a president that won a war, just declare war against France and Macron. He'll surrender, right? I mean, whatever happened to Europe is a thing of the past. They're countries that are living off 150 years. People go there to watch things that happened 150 years ago. They don't create, they don't invent. They have no guts. I mean, they were all excited about Ukraine. Now they're backing out. Maybe they're right. But I mean, if Ukraine wants to count on Europe, maybe, maybe Eastern Europe, far different story. But they just went through the terrors of communism that Obama and Biden want to impose on us and are imposing on us. So it's different in the countries that were previously communist countries. They're very different. And they'll fight if they have to. But why we want to hook ourselves up and follow Europe is totally ridiculous, because they're basically mostly failures. Spirit is gone, and the only spirit they have comes from us. I can't tell you, when I would travel in Europe when Trump was president, how many of those people who don't like him would say, but we really wish we had a president like him who fought for us, because our presidents fight for theoretical nothing change. They don't fight for their people having better jobs or a better future or better education. They fight for climate change. So I'm going to show you this too now. See this? This is my city. This breaks my heart. That's talking about the vast increase, unbelievable increase of in retail theft. Retail theft over 2 years is up 64%. It's up 109% in LA. And somewhere here is, and I congratulate the author, Ariel Zilber, for doing it, but I do want to give her an answer to a question she raises, which I would think she'd be able to answer for herself, which is people don't seem to know cause unclear. Now, do you think all of these smash and grabs that go on that you see on television, you think the cause of it's unclear? Or when you see it, does it remind you of something? Does it bring back in your mind anything that you can compare it to, Ted? When you see them go into Walmart or whatever, and you know, they had one the other day in which they went into this store. I don't know which store it was. It was a fairly large store, and about 20 people are taking stuff off the shelves, and you know, very violently, and the other people are just going about their business. They're at the counter paying for their stuff, and it's like it's now. This is what you do: you walk in and take out what you want.
It's awful.
And but what does it remind you of? I know exactly what caused it.
Like, what does it? I mean, it reminds me of what we saw in 2020.
Yeah, that never happened before 2020. You're watching all over America. They watch it on television. I mean, the smash and grabs all over the country by Black Lives Matter and Antifa, in which they were saying, "Oh, the poor people have to be fed by taking a 75-inch television. What were they going to eat? A 75-inch television? Do you realize the crap that the left wing gives you? Do you realize the intellectual idiocy that they practice? And the squad, and then all the other ones who follow them, lapping them up, and would say, even members of Congress, like Maxine Waters, well, I mean, you can't help it when people are starving. You just don't take a television when you're starving, I'm sorry, or liquor. You get out. Then they're not walking out with food. How many times do you see them walking out with food? I see them walking out with jewelry.
They don't stop them. I was inside a CV of Dwayne Reed, you know, in New York.
Of course, they'll take anything that isn't locked down.
They will walk out with anything. And I talked to a staff member at one of these stores, right? And they're like, I'm not going to stop. They literally told me, like, I don't care if you walk out with that. I think it was like ice cream or something. And I was saying how, oh, wow. And they're like, the employee said, walk out. I don't care. And I said, what do you mean? And she said, people walk out all day with stuff. I'm not going to get hurt. Well, it wasn't even their fear of getting hurt. They were saying how not going to get punished by stopping someone, and then
There was a
get in
famous
trouble.
situation a number of months ago, right, where somebody was fired because they tried to stop.
Yes. So it's not even that I could see them being concerned. I don't want to get hurt by trying to stop someone over a thing of ice cream, but that's not their concern. They're afraid of getting in trouble.
Very old-fashioned person that thinks he should step in and. Oh my goodness!
Oh my, that's yeah. It's almost you almost.
Pretty soon we'll be at the
we
stage.
advise them not to do it. Almost.
Pretty
right?
soon you're going to be at a stage where if you don't help them, you're going to get prosecuted. If they come in and they're having trouble, if they come in and they're having trouble taking the televisions out, and
if you don't open the door for
them, Bragg will prosecute you.
It's awful, but I've seen it up close numerous times. And if you were with me in these occasions, you would not be happy, Mayor. I've seen police officers.
I haven't been happy in a long time.
This isn't a knock on the police. I watched a police officer on like 6th Avenue, a bakery. Some guy runs out with 2 muffins. I see 2 police officers. They don't even move. They just watch.
This used to drive me crazy when I was imprisoned by the Democratic dictatorship during the pandemic. You all were imprisoned by the Democratic dictatorship. You'd watch the riots that were going on, and you'd see, and of course, I had a very close relationship with the police. I still do.
Still do. I can attest to that.
I can't imagine even apart a store and walking out, and my cops stood there and watched it. I mean, I said, I went on television, they used to let me on Fox now. And I said, this is gonna spur a massive crime wave. I predicted this. This would be a massive crime wave that you can do. It's okay to do it. The seminal moment is when the juvenile mayor of Minneapolis, gave up the police station. I'd be damned if I ever give up a police station.
You would never allow that to happen.
No way. I'd go there with them.
You would be there with them.
I mean, they're not going to take a New York City police station. Not going to happen.
I bet you they would know better if for whatever reason.
And if you stop them from doing one, they never do another.
They wouldn't do it.
They never do another.
If for some reason you were mayor in a year from now, they wouldn't do it. They would know your reputation would precede you.
If I became,
and they would know better.
You're going to probably think I'm crazy. If I became mayor tomorrow, the smash and grabs that stopped 2 days later.
I 100% believe that after living
because I'd flood the stores with cops and I'd arrest every single one of them.
Multiple times, Mayor, the last 6 months.
We'd get it over with. We'd make a demonstration and we'd get it over with. And if you don't think that criminals can be deterred, then you're an immature idiot.
Impacts when we're seeing this now. Employees don't want to stop.
I'll give you another stupid liberal thing. Oh, you should never dress the police up in that armored uniform and stuff like that. It'll provoke riots. The hell it provokes riots. They're shitting in their pants. I'm telling you, those people, you think they're big heroes? Big heroes don't run in a gang and loot a store. A guy comes up and fights you man to man who's a hero. These are little slimy cowards. And there's stuff about their trying to get food. Please spare me, as they say. So the other thing that is completely, I mean, this is a day of multiple insane things that have happened. Embedding the press with terrorists, if it happened. Now we have to say if it happened. The Times denies it. Some of them kind of admit it, but say they didn't know what was happening, which would be kind of stupid. That they didn't know. They're hell of a really good reporters if they didn't know what a terrorist group. That reporters who cover the Middle East don't know what Hamas is going to do. They're almost like our intelligence services.
I saw these guys taking pictures.
Now our intelligence was very, very useful on October 6th, wasn't it?
Oh God!
I mean, all they're capable of is writing false letters about Russian collusion.
Right? Yeah, that's what they're focused on.
51 of them lied for Biden. The ones who led are not being able to figure out that there weren't weapons of mass destruction. The ones who led Benghazi, those are the people who signed those letters. So the second one that is equally as amazing to me is Bibi was talked into, has to be against his will, take war. What in God's name is that? You're trying to take a Hamas site that's used for bombing, right? and it's deep in the ground, and you're going after it, and you got to go after it with troops because you can't get at it with bombing. And you're in the middle of it, and you're having some success. Time out. Let's take 4 hours off now. It's like the commercial timeouts in football. Timeout.
Yeah, what is this, a game?
Timeout.
A game of kickball?
I want my 4 hours now. You're killing too much of us. Now, there were no timeouts when they came in, raped, pillaged, stole, ripped apart, and tortured the Israeli people, were there? I don't remember a timeout. They just came in, they slaughtered. It wasn't a timeout when they hit the World Trade Center. There wasn't a timeout after the first one so we could, react to the second. Well, I'm sorry, if you want to defend yourself against these animals, you start taking timeouts, they're going to take advantage of you. They're going to think you're a weakling. By the way, you are. You are. You show yourself not capable of defending yourself against people like this. You show you're not tough enough and strong enough to do it. You're not strong enough to make tough decisions. It is a very hospital that is the command center for Hamas, because you are going to kill innocent people. And believe me, the Israeli army, and I've been with them. I was embedded with them, by the way, in the Iron Dome. And they don't do this easily. And you see it to avoid the civilians being there. I think I have the number right. 1 million people have left the northern part of Gaza and are in the southern part of Gaza, and you don't see them bombing the southern part of Gaza. And to add to themselves this artificial pause is just going to get more Israelis killed. I mean, that's what has happened actually with the kind of attack they're doing. It's damn successful, but it should have been done all at once. They should have gone in the way the Israeli army planned it, not the way in which Biden, who really is on the other side, intimidated them into doing it. It can't be Biden who does it, because Biden can't intimidate anybody. Biden was always a guy with a big mouth and no guts. That's why he tells all heroic stories that are completely untrue, because he lives in his own world. So somebody else is pushing this, and it's got to be Obama in the background pushing it, because it's too much of a pro-Islamic, pro-communist agenda. I mean, there's no question that whoever is coming up with this agenda cares more about Iran than it does Israel. You cannot have sent $5 or $6 to Iran when their main mission is destroy the state of Israel, if you really don't want the state of Israel destroyed. And if that isn't at the core of your Middle East policy. So I'm going to call him out. I mean, he's an anti-Semite. He hates the Jewish people. You can't put them in jeopardy like this if you don't hate them. These are decisions that have direct consequences. The Iranian government sponsors terrorism, biggest sponsor of terrorism in the world. The Iranian government is maniacally devoted to the destruction, not just of the state of Israel, on an insane religious basis, the destruction of the Jewish people. And you give them hundreds of millions in cash? They tell you to give them cash, and you give them cash, and you don't know that that's going for the purpose of killing Jewish people, which is what they announced they do. And you don't know, as President of the United States, they were doing a damn good job of killing Americans at that time. A lot of American families, children, any longer because of the Quds Force. How much of that money was used to kill Americans? Barack or Barry, like you were called in high school? Well, maybe by tomorrow we will have answers to the CNN, New York Times, AP, and Reuters embedded photographers, and exactly how they made that deal with Hamas. And maybe they could spend a little time trying to get the hostages back if they're that friendly with Hamas. Now, ask me the following question, Ted. How would you get the hostages back if you were president of the United States? I'd get them back by intimidating the hell out of Qatar first.
How about you answer me that question, Mayor? I think people would much rather hear from you and your experience than some guy. What would you do as someone who?
I mean, there are a number of things you can do. They should have been back by now. One of the things you do immediately is to say, and this would be like early on and not terribly escalating it. You tell Qatar, I want them back. And why you 150 million a year or a month or whatever. You got their people protected here. Their key killers are protected here, and they're all apparently worth 10 billion or more. Okay, we just cut off relations with you, and they say, well, you have to get rid of your base. You want to come and take it? Your little country of 1 million, you want to come and take my base? You know, that's one of the most sophisticated bases in the world. You got a very tiny little plot of land here. It doesn't have to be here. If it gets in our way, it may not have to be here. You better get those hostages back for us, because I don't tolerate Americans being pushed around by
anybody. You're saying Qatar has the influence and the ability to do it?
In a minute. If Qatar said to them, give them the hostages back.
So it's Qatar, not Iran?
Oh, Iran. Now you go to Iran next.
They have is it the money, or what is it about Qatar?
Iran, you say, if they're there more than 3 more days, Mr. Ayatollah, we're going to put a...
What are the chances that Biden sent that sort of message to Iran?
He doesn't care about us.
Zero? I mean, next to zero, right?
He affirmatively gets Americans killed. How the hell is he going to save them? Has he saved any Americans? I mean, the ones he saved, he's given like $10 billion to the terrorists to get people back.
Can we predict what President Trump would do? Because we expect him to be back in the White House, right? But let's say you're the president, Mayor. I come to you, Mr. President, there's 100 hostages.
You don't get to keep Americans.
There's 100 hostages right now. Or we don't even know how many, right?
I put every bit of pressure on you that I'm capable of. I cut Iran off from food, water, put them back where they were when Trump was president, starving, holding signs at demonstrations, give me $500 for my kidney. That's what Trump did to them. When Trump came into office, he did not have new sanctions against Iran. He impoverished them in 6 months. He did it by enforcing all the sanctions that
were already on the table.
Pro-Islamic terrorist Obama didn't do. Now, he did kill some of the terrorists he didn't like. He put bombs on their head. But Iran, he's in love with Iran. He's with Iran.
Yeah. Objectively.
I mean, the only country that kills more of its own people in the world is communist China.
Yeah.
And now the two of them in Russia have become allies. But the pressure's got to be put on Iran. And Iran is being, even in Biden's rhetoric, Iran is being spared all pressure. You'd almost think they paid him like China did.
But isn't Qatar even getting more of a pass? People don't even, they talk about Hamas being in Qatar as if like, okay, that's fine, right? It's like it's just another story.
Those people should be turned over to us. People running Hamas, who are the people who ordered the killing of all of those innocent people, including 30 Americans, by the way. Do we want to remember that they tortured and killed 30 Americans? But we don't even tell our people that. How about 4 more attacks on our troops in the last 2 days? We've had up to 46, 47 now. They were lying about it for the longest time. And then they also like to say no serious injuries until somebody dug out there were 25 people with catastrophic brain injury.
Catastrophic in brain. That doesn't sound minor to me.
It's very bad.
Yeah.
And our response, we hid an empty ammunition 2 weeks ago. Yeah. And on the same day, we hit one that did have ammunition. Neither one of them had human beings.
I learned from you, Mayor, the Clinton strategy.
That's the Clinton strategy. Let's hit empty fields. And then, and then what happens is, it's real simple. What happens is a bully, which is what a terrorist and a dictator is, figures you're easy to take, and he comes and does 9/11. One of the things reported about bin Laden was he was shocked at Bush's response. He was shocked that we went into Afghanistan and started killing Taliban.
He was? He didn't expect that?
I never expected it. because he went through 3 or 4 years. He hit an American warship.
Yemen.
He
Or the
did-
Cole, the U.S.
Yeah,
Cole.
he did a quintessential act of war. He hit an armed vessel of the United States.
Yeah,
and
in
killed
a cowardly fashion.
and killed our troops.
Yeah,
And we hit an empty field.
Yeah.
In response, we should have put a bomb on his head when he did it.
What did we do after the 93 attacks in the World Trade Center? Nothing. Well, the point being, not a major response, right?
No, I don't think we did.
That we
anything.
remember.
I don't think we did it. Clinton never did anything.
Yeah,
Clinton was well known
going to
for
your point, right? That
Clinton was
time-
well known for hitting empty fields.
What did Osama bin Laden think after doing
Osama bin
something?
Laden thought this country is a country of weaklings. He didn't think just Clinton was or Gore, but he thought they were. He doesn't know the political distinction in our country. It's the reason on September 11, I said to Bernie, God, Gore isn't president. And I was helping people flee the collapse of the second tower when I just occurred to me, my God, if Gore were president, he'll encourage more of this. He'll probably go hit some empty field and make friends with them.
There is something to be said that and not face anything to that, since then.
Well,
Sometimes you would think something like that might
many
encourage
people
others to
other than
repeat.
me say we're facing it, and it's going to happen.
It is going to happen.
It's hard to believe that it isn't going to
that
happen.
it hasn't yet.
With all of the terrorists that we now let into this country. I mean, I can't possibly tell you the numbers are probably would shock the hell out of you.
Yeah.
I mean, if put yourself in a position of running a terrorist group, if you can.
Yeah.
You got to think like a criminal to catch criminals. That's what Judge McMahon taught me. So if all of a sudden you found out there was a big thing to come into the United States, and you ran a terrorist organization that wanted to infiltrate the United States, do you think you send people in? Of course you would. If you ran a drug organization when you wanted to sell more drugs in the United States, you think you'd send your people in? Of course you would. And those are the people. Are all of them that way? No, it only has to be 10% of them that are like that, and it's probably a hell of a lot more. They're vetted by the cartels. You think the cartels are like picking out the best people for us? So
That's a good point. These are things you don't.
people don't
This
think
is the stuff you get when you're watching America's Mayor Confidential.
Well, we're going to let people go back and have some time to relax after all this unnerving stuff that we talk about. But the only way we're going to protect ourselves against it is talking about it. And we'll see what happens tomorrow. I don't know what we could find more shocking than betting press photographers with a terrorist group, or embedding anybody with a terrorist group. But if it's true, it wouldn't be out of character for AP, the Times, CNN, or Reuters. Think of how they did the censorship of the hard drive that would have materially affected the 2020 election and prevented the election of our most incompetent and dangerous president. All have a nice evening. Pray for the people of Israel. Pray for the people of the United States. And also say a prayer of thanksgiving that you are an American, because we have the capability of turning this all around on a dime. It's in your hands. This country belongs to you, not me, not Biden, not Trump, not DeSantis, not any of these people. It belongs to you. It was created by our founders and by God for you. God bless America.